Here's the thing nobody talks about. She's not throwing herself at you. She doesn't flirt aggressively. She doesn't pursue. She keeps things measured and low-key. So naturally, you assume the interest just isn't there. But there's one quiet behavior that almost every man overlooks. And if you learn to spot it, you'll realize she's had you on her mind far more than she's ever let you see. You're reading her completely wrong. You've convinced yourself she's indifferent. You've decided that her distance means detachment, that her silence is the answer. But what if the reality is the opposite? That she's been thinking about you far more than you'd ever guess. And here's the part that might genuinely surprise you. The cooler she plays it on the outside, the more consumed she might be on the inside. Stay with me, because this goes deeper than you'd expect. Most men give up at exactly the wrong moment. They walk away right when she's starting to turn them over in her mind, right when her thoughts are circling back to them again and again. They misread withdrawal as rejection. But there is one specific sign that cuts through all the noise. One behavior that reveals what's actually going on beneath the surface. And once you see it, you'll look back at every interaction differently. Why women conceal strong attraction. I'm going to walk you through the hidden signals that show she's thinking about you constantly, even when she's acting unbothered, even when she seems cold or checked out, even when every visible sign says she's not interested. And here's what most people never explain. There's a real psychological process that occurs in a woman's mind when she's attracted to someone but working hard to conceal it. Once you grasp this, misreading her signals becomes nearly impossible. But before we get there, let's talk about the mistake most men are making right now. The painful confusion, and why everything you think you know is inverted. Imagine this scenario. She takes forever to reply to your texts. When you cross paths, she acts relaxed, almost suspiciously relaxed. She's stopped starting conversations, and when you're in the same space, you're treated like background noise. So you start second-guessing everything. Maybe I imagined the connection. Maybe she was never really into me. Maybe it's time to move on. Here's what's actually unfolding beneath the surface. When a woman feels genuinely drawn to someone, her brain enters a state psychologists describe as defensive withdrawal, a kind of emotional self-protection. It sounds counterintuitive, but stay with it. The hot and cold dynamic explained. Women don't signal interest the way men do. When a man is attracted, he moves toward. He makes his intentions known. He closes the distance. But when a woman is deeply drawn to someone and can't stop thinking about him, she often does the reverse. She steps back. She observes. She watches how he handles her pulling away. Why? Because for women, attraction carries emotional risk. The fear of seeming desperate, the fear of rejection, the fear of handing over too much power too soon. So her mind does something that seems illogical from the outside. It tells her to create space in order to feel safe. And here's the insight that reframes everything. The more her thoughts keep returning to you, the more likely she is to act like they don't. Because thinking about you makes her feel exposed, vulnerable. And her instinct is to manage that vulnerability by keeping emotional distance, even while privately her mind keeps coming back to you. There are 7 unmistakable signs that expose this pattern. Sign number 4 in particular leaves no room for doubt. But first, let's break down what her behavior is actually communicating. The hidden signals, what she's really telling you. Before we continue, if this is already making you rethink someone, hit the like button. What's coming next will give you a level of clarity you probably haven't had before. Sign 1. She watches you when she thinks you're not paying attention. This is one of the biggest tells, and most men never catch it because they're focused entirely on getting her to notice them directly. Women are deeply observant. When you've genuinely taken up space in her thoughts, she studies you. How you carry yourself, who commands your attention, how you move through a room. You might notice her eyes drifting your direction in a group setting, and the moment you look back, she glances away. That instant redirection isn't indifference. That's her caught off guard. In the digital world, it looks like this. She's watching your stories within seconds of you posting. She's quietly surfacing posts from weeks back. She's visiting your profile when she assumes you won't notice. Here's why this matters. Attention is not neutral. Where someone's focus keeps returning, the mind follows. And if she's watching you from the periphery, her imagination is already constructing scenarios. Conversations that haven't happened, moments that don't exist yet. That's not casual curiosity. That's something that's taken root. Sign 2. She recalls small details you mentioned weeks ago. This is where the pattern starts to become undeniable. You mentioned in passing that you had a big work deadline coming up. 2 weeks later, she asks how it went. You brought up your favorite artist once. She works it into conversation casually, like she's always known. You might tell yourself she's just thoughtful or has a good memory. But here's the reality. Research consistently shows that people forget the vast majority of what they're told within a single day. That's just how memory works under normal conditions. But when someone is thinking about you repeatedly, they're unconsciously reviewing your conversations, filing away details, building a mental portrait of who you are. The striking part? She probably isn't even conscious of doing it. Her brain has quietly prioritized information about you above everything else. If she remembers that you hate a particular food, that your younger sibling's name is something you mentioned once, that you have some small detail from a story you told months ago, she's been thinking about you far more than anything she's actually said. Sign 3. Her friends already know who you are, and they act strangely around you. This one is one of the most reliable giveaways, and it's surprisingly easy to spot. When you're around her friends, there are knowing glances, subtle smiles, the occasional almost slip where someone starts to say something and then catches herself. Maybe one of them references you in a context that implies familiarity, even though you've never really spent time with them. Women process attraction verbally. They talk through it with the people they trust. They dissect text exchanges. They replay interactions out loud to get perspective. If her friends recognize you, know your name, and carry themselves differently when you walk in, that means you've been a recurring subject. You've been analyzed, discussed, debated. You're not just someone she crossed paths with. You're someone she's actively trying to make sense of. And when her friends start behaving like they're in on something, it's because they've heard enough to have their own feelings about whatever is developing between you two. Sign 4. She initiates contact out of nowhere and then vanishes again. This is the sign that creates the most confusion, and it's also the most powerful indicator of what's really going on in her head. Here's what the cycle looks like. She reaches out completely unprompted. A random meme, a question that didn't need to be asked, "This made me think of you" message that seems low stakes. You respond. The conversation flows, the energy feels natural. You start thinking, okay, maybe something is actually here. Then she's gone again. Days pass, maybe longer, and you're left replaying the exchange, wondering what shifted. Here's what's actually happening inside her head, and this is where psychology becomes genuinely fascinating. She reached out because she'd been holding back from doing so for as long as she could. The buildup of thinking about you reached a point where making contact felt unavoidable. But the second she sent that message, the fear rushed in. Am I making it too obvious? Am I giving him too much before I know where this stands? Am I losing the upper hand? So she retreats. Not because interest faded, but because she's managing the emotional exposure. This is called approach-avoidance conflict. She's pulled toward you and simultaneously scared of what that pull means. Her solution is to stay present in your life just enough, but never enough to feel like she's revealed too much. And here's the detail that makes it undeniable. The timing of her outreach isn't random. She tends to reach out right when she thinks you might be drifting, right when the silence has stretched long enough that she worries she's losing her place in your awareness. That's not coincidence. That's someone who's been keeping track. Sign 5. Something subtly shifts in how she acts around you versus everyone else. This one is easy to miss if you're not watching for it, but once you know what it looks like, you'll see it clearly. Around most people, she's consistent, easy, natural. But around you, something changes. Maybe she becomes slightly more guarded. Maybe her laugh is a fraction more open. Maybe her voice adjusts in a way that's hard to name. She might touch her hair more, lose her train of thought, or break eye contact just a beat sooner than you'd expect. Most people interpret these as signs of discomfort or awkwardness, but they're actually physiological responses, her nervous system reacting to someone who genuinely affects her. When someone is truly neutral toward you, they're physically at ease around you. It's the people who carry weight for us who cause these quiet, involuntary responses. If she's slightly more guarded with you than she is with others, that's not a red flag. That's actually a stronger signal of attraction than overt flirtation, because she's protecting herself from someone she knows has the capacity to matter to her. We don't build walls around people who don't affect us. Sign 6. She's testing you, and most men fail without realizing it. She'll drop something into the conversation to see how you react. She might mention another guy's name and watch for your response. She'll cancel plans and observe whether you stay composed or get visibly thrown. She'll go quiet for a stretch just to see what you do with the silence. Here's what you need to understand. These aren't deliberate power plays for the sake of it. They're instinctive calibrations. She's trying to determine whether you're emotionally grounded, whether you'll hold your frame when things get uncertain, whether you're the kind of person who can handle complexity without falling apart. When a woman is thinking about someone seriously, she needs to know they're genuinely solid before she lets herself feel it fully. These moments are how she finds out. The men who stay steady, who don't chase desperately or disappear coldly, are the ones who prove they're worth the risk. Sign 7. What all of this means and what you should actually do. Here's the honest truth. This is not always comfortable to sit inside of. When you care about someone, you want a straight answer. You want her to just say it. But attraction rarely announces itself clearly, especially when someone is protecting themselves from being hurt. So what do? You pay attention to the signals instead of the silence. You stay grounded instead of reactive. You resist the urge to force clarity before she's ready to offer it. Because the man who can hold his composure in ambiguity, who doesn't spiral, doesn't chase, doesn't disappear, is exactly the kind of man that draws someone out of their own defenses. If this gave you a new lens for reading someone in your life, leave a comment with the word aware. It lets me know you're catching the signals that actually matter. And subscribe, because we're going much further into the psychology of attraction than most conversations ever go. The next video is going to show you how to take her curiosity and turn it into something real. Click it now, and I'll see you there.